All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Global Goddess Fest, where men and women are tuning in from around the world to receive education, connect with global leaders, and gain inspiration on creating the life of your dreams. So, super excited today to have Devi Erickson here. Thanks so much for coming and joining us.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, awesome. So, Devi Ward is the founder of the Institute of Authentic Tantra Education and creator of Authentic Tantra, a sexual healing modality rooted in the Tibetan five-element tantric teachings. So she's an internationally recognized tantra expert, certified tantric healer, Reiki practitioner, meditation instructor, and has been teaching meditation and personal growth workshops for over 17 years. So it's incredible work that you've been doing for a long time. So I'm excited to wring out some beautiful knowledge from you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to share.
Yeah, and you're also the author and host of Sex is Magic that you can find on iTunes. And Devi has also been featured as a Tantra and female sexuality expert in countless articles and over 30 different radio and television networks worldwide. Some of those are Playboy Radio, Men's Health Magazine, CBS, NBC, and Rogers TV in the movie Sexology. So you sure have, your information, your hands out there, and it's awesome that you're sharing your work in such a big way.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, and we're having you on here today to talk about owning your orgasm and your pleasure, and this is directed towards women, but also men, and we welcome everyone to come here and learn because I think we can both benefit, and as we're mutually exploring this space, it's a beautiful practice to begin with yourself and then joining with a partner.
Absolutely. Yeah, orgasm and pleasure are empowering for all genders.
Oh yeah, totally. We all want to do that. Most definitely. So I guess just to start for our viewers that maybe are unfamiliar with that term, what is Tantra?
Oh yeah, so that's such a wonderfully loaded question here in North America. So traditionally, Tantra is a spiritual practice. It's a discipline that began in India thousands and thousands of years ago. And in India, there were different lineages or different philosophies around the practice of Tantra. For example, there was Hindu Tantra. There was a goddess-based Tantra. I can't remember it's similar to Shakti, but I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head. And then there was Buddhist Tantra, Vajrayana Tantra. And so the Tantric teachings spread from India all over Tibet, China, Southeast Asia. So generally, when we're talking about traditional Tantra, it is a spiritual discipline that started in India. And it includes instructions for how to integrate your sexuality with your spiritual path, because sexuality is part of our basic humanity. We can't leave it in the shadows. It has to be part of our whole integrated experience in order for us to be whole integrated human beings and realize, enlightenment, whatever your goal is. There's also Chinese Taoist sexual yoga, which many people refer to as Taoist Tantra. In the Tibetan tradition, which is what I'm trained in, the foundation of what I'm trained in is Tibetan Buddhist Tantra. And the word Tantra literally means to weave light and sound with form. Now, other definitions of Tantra simply mean to weave. But in the Tibetan tradition, they're very, very specific. And it indicates a very specific yoga or yogic practice that's done. So light is visualization, sound is mantra, and form is the body. So by weaving light and sound with form, it stimulates different areas of the brain that catalyze profound transformation of human consciousness. This weaving of light and sound with form can be applied to any activity. So it can be applied to walking, it can be applied to talking, and it can be applied to sexuality. So when we apply weaving light and sound with form, it elevates and accelerates that process for us. In North America, Tantra means everything from an erotic massage to a hatha yoga class, right? So the word Tantra has become very creatively used shall we say, in North America, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? So it's opened up this whole new world of being able to explore our bodies and explore our sexuality in a way that's very mindful and very conscious. And that's one of the things we desperately need in this culture. We absolutely need mindfulness and presence and sacredness brought to our instruction around sexuality. So that's a really beautiful service that I feel is provided by most people's understanding of Tantra here in North America, as more of a sexually based practice. Traditionally, Tantra, just a portion of it has to do with sex in the traditional lineage. But in North America, the orientation, the focus is very sexual. And I think that's really a good thing, because our sexuality is where we have so much shadow and so much shaming and so much cultural conditioning and disassociation, ultimately, like it's separate from us. So I truly believe that this focus on bringing these sacred tools into the area of sexuality is a really potent way of transforming our planetary, I'm going to say, I like to take it big, our planetary relationship to sexuality.
Wow, I love
I hope that wasn't too much.
No, that was amazing. Amazing. More. That's so cool. And yeah, I like looking at it on that, macro scale and seeing how how we relate to ourselves and our own pleasures can really ripple out into such a big, big way. And I guess to, kind of talk with our viewers here, also like kind of bridging that gap a little bit more. So, how does that specifically relate, like maybe with the clients that you've worked with or your personal practice? How does that relate from the bedroom to your everyday life?
Yeah, so that's such a great question, because there's no separation, right? We're taught that our sex is this thing that we like stick on the shelf in the closet, and that's where it lives, and then life happens over here. And then like every Saturday morning, we take sex out of the closet, dust it off, and say, okay, now work sex. And then we take it back and put it in the closet and hide it in the dark, right? As if it's something separate from us. That's the way our culture teaches us or treats our sexuality. And yet, it's the core of our humanity. I mean, we come here through sex. Children are shameless about sex. Little babies are like touching and fondling. There's no shame. So we're not born with this belief that sex is somehow scary or dirty or shameful. We're taught that, right? So our inner experience translates to the world, and the world's experience translates to us. So there's this constant flux and flow of communication. As children, we come into this world with like fully, full awareness intact, full freedom intact, and a lot of that is shut down through our cultural conditioning. So for me, when I first began my Tantra journey, one of the most epic and profound realizations I had was how much of our culture determines how much of our sexuality we feel safe expressing in the world. And our culture, and we get these messages not necessarily directly through people saying, well, sex is bad and dirty. We get it through the media. We get it through television. We get it through listening to conversations that adults are having in the room when we're little, and we don't even understand what it means, but we understand tones, we understand gestures, we understand energy. So a lot of the negative messages that we receive about sexuality, and most of the messages we receive about sex in this culture are negative. Most of those messages are conveyed to us at ages when we're not actually able to rationalize it. It just goes in like a sponge, like that saying, children are sponges. Well, they are. It goes in and it builds, it's part of our psyche, right? So as adults or teenagers, when we're emerging out into the world with our sexuality, we already have blocks. We already have, traumas. We already have all kinds of sexual wounding inside of us that's been put upon us, that's been given to us simply from the society that we live in. So we're kind of, we're at a disadvantage. If you weren't raised with very consciously sex-positive parents, you are sexually traumatized, in one way or another. And so we start out at a disadvantage. And so it's up to us as individuals to reclaim our birthright to our own sexual pleasure, because it was taken from us. Our right to feel safe and sensual and whole and wholesome in our sexual bodies was conditioned out of us. And so the healing process starts here. That's why it starts here with us. And as we go through our own healing, and I like to call healing and revealing process, peeling away the layers, we let go of that shame. And we start to realize that it's not us. Like when we're standing, I'll speak for myself. I find that my freedom from sexual shame has helped me realize that if other people in the room feel uncomfortable with sex, that's not my problem. That's their problem, right? So the culture at large is terrified of anything having to do with sexuality. Absolutely. You cannot, like I did radio interviews on NBC. They won't have me back because I refuse to not say penis and vagina. And you'll get censored for saying penis and vagina. I'm like, that's so stupid. You'll get that's like getting censored because I said finger. Like you're going to fine me $100,000 because I said finger. It's insane. So I just refuse to like buy into that. But that's the culture that we live in, is that you cannot say penis and vagina on the radio without getting a $100,000 fine. That's how terrified this culture is of talking about anything having to do with sexuality. So this is the world that we live in. And yet we believe, because we learned as children that, oh, this is what I have to do to receive love and acceptance. So if I feel sexual pleasure, there must be something wrong with me. And so as an adult, healing and revealing my full sexual power, now I recognize, wait a minute, the problem isn't me, the problem's out there. And so in the work that I do, I strive to bring education and teaching and tools to help people go through this journey themselves. And the more people that we have who've healed their shame and healed their conditioning around sexuality, it's like critical mass. Imagine living on a planet where everybody, or the majority of the people, were sexually healthy, sexually happy, we're comfortable talking about orgasm at the dinner table, and you could say penis and vagina on the radio, and that was okay. Like imagine the culture that we would live in. It would look very different. It would function very differently. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Okay.
What do you think would be some of the main things that would change in our society? So not necessarily like in the bedroom, but in our society, if that, if everyone was in that like fully healed sexual place?
Yeah, I think so much would change. I think that our primary motivation, I'm going to talk about North American culture primarily because that's what I live in. So I think the values of North American culture are more on like acquiring products, material things, a lack of empathy and a lack of connection for other human beings, particularly in the United States. I mean, like look at what we've got going on in the United States right now. That's a perfect example. I do not think Trump and Melania have a good sex life. I'm just saying, like, like really. And it's apparent in the orientation to life, the way people view and think about life. So, for example, have you ever had a really wonderful lovemaking session where it was just like really wonderful and really connected and you had lots of bliss and lots of pleasure? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want the viewers to think of that too. Think of and it could be a self-pleasuring session, just like any kind of sexual experience that felt really nurturing and really wonderful to you. Okay, did you want to go shoot people after that? If somebody was like, you should go to war, would you be like, yeah, fuck you? Mm-hmm. Did you really care about anything other than having more of that amazing experience? So sexual pleasure on a physiological level, I mean, it's healing spiritually and emotionally, but on a physiological level, it's designed to release chemicals, hormones and neurotransmitters in the brain that actually help us function better as human beings, that actually help with social bonding, help with emotional intelligence and balance, help, relieve anxiety, help relieve depression. So we're chemically hardwired so that sexual pleasure is medicine for us, quite literally, and allows us as human beings to be happy, healthy, and emotionally functional. A lot of what we see in this culture is dysfunctional, quite frankly. It's dysfunctional behavior. Relationships are dysfunctional. People are dysfunctional. People are taking pills all the time. Is it to fix, anxiety, depression, all of that, those things, all of those symptoms, all of those are symptoms of pain, of trauma, of a lack of connection. So sex and sexual pleasure it has the potential to be one of the most potent forms of healing and medicine, particularly because it facilitates connection.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you think, in today's world, do you think there's a difference between men and women and where they're at in the grand scheme of things of being sexually healed?
Well, there's all different types of people. So I think it depends on, there's people that are kind of like into yoga and healing. Then there's people that are pretty mainstream and really into Western science. So I think it depends on the demographic or the culture, or the subculture of people that you're speaking to. What I can say in my work is, there's this whole segment of men who are suffering tremendously because of pornography. That's something that I get a lot of questions about, and I have a lot of interaction with men about, and starting from the time they're like 10 years old. So I do believe, in answer to your question, that what I see is that there is a degree of, due to porn addiction and porn culture, there is a level of suffering that is unique to men that I think has never been experienced by men on this planet. And it's deeply tragic, and it really causes a lot of suffering for them. So I would say in that respect, yes, that's very different. Yes, women can be addicted to porn, but the rates are not as high. It's very, very prevalent for men because it's culturally acceptable. It's socially and culturally acceptable for men to masturbate to porn. It's not so acceptable for women to masturbate, period. So the prevalence of porn addiction is higher in men, and so that's a unique struggle that many of them have to deal with. A larger number of them have to deal with. For women, what women tend to have to struggle with is the good girl complex, is the idea that good girls don't touch themselves, know their vaginas, put things in their vaginas, Good girls don't scream during orgasm. Good girls don't squirt. Good girls don't wet the bed. Good girls don't know what they want. Good girls don't tell their partners what feels good, right? So the good girl complex is a particular struggle that women deal with. And then the porn addiction is something that I see it's very prevalent with those who have penises in our society.
Totally. Yeah, I see those two worlds.
Yeah.
So just personally, like, how did you get into this sort of work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had been a monk of the Ashaya order when I graduated in the class of 2000. So when I was about 23, which was 20 years ago, I moved to North Carolina and took vows and became a monk. And then I went through a very intensive training period in meditation. So from year 2000, I was out in the world teaching meditation and personal growth workshops. And in 2005, I moved to Kauai, Hawaii, and I began teaching something called sacred erotic dance. So before I was a monk, I was a stripper in Detroit. So sacred erotic dance was this beautiful fusion. It was an expression of the sacredness of sensual expression. And from that, I was actually invited to train in the secret Tibetan 5-element sexual tantras by a tantra trainer on the island of Kauai. And I encountered him, and he knew of my work, and he thought that I had incredible propensity to be a high tantrika. And so I went through a period of training and mentoring with him. And I began also studying Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, of course, because I was learning this Tibetan sexual yoga. So I started studying Tibetan Tantric Buddhism under my teacher, Lama Tashi. And so I did that for several years, and then moved to Vancouver and continued to train with my mentor, as well as begin teaching and bringing these teachings out into the world. And so it was literally a fluke. Like most people who get into Tantra are looking for better sex or sexual healing. That was not on my radar at all. I didn't know what the word sexual healing meant. I was like, what? That's like Marvin Gaye's song. Like, what the hell does that mean? What I was interested in was learning how to utilize my sexual energy for the purpose of spiritual realization. Because keep in mind, I was a monk, and I had tried Reiki. I mean, I've been a certified Reiki practitioner since I was 19. I've done Reiki, I've done raw foods, I've done crystal therapy, I've done sound, I've done like everything. Like I've had my fingers in a lot of pies, right? And all of it was amazing, and it had gotten me to a certain point. The one thing that I had never received any training or instruction about was how do you harness sexual energy and use it for spiritual realization. And so the person who offered to mentor me through this process, that's the way he presented it. He didn't say, hey, Davey, do you want to learn how to have better orgasms? Because I would have been like, no, I was not interested. I thought my orgasms were fine. I didn't need to know about orgasms. You know, I didn't know. It was like sex was like a mystery to me. I mean, I had it, but I was not educated. I didn't know where my G-spot was. I didn't even care if I had a G-spot. I was like, so it was irrelevant to me, right? So he said to me, instead of do you want to have better orgasms, he said, would you like to learn how to harness your sexual energy, these ancient secret teachings to harness sexual energy and use it for the purpose of spiritual realization? And I was like, I'm in. And it was through that process that I started to dive into sexual healing. And once I understood what sexual healing was about, I was like, oh my God, everybody needs to know about this. Because I was trapped on the surface, you know, and like our sexuality is like this huge iceberg. And we get this much from our culture. And then the rest of it is intentionally suppressed. And once we start peeling away these layers, so much more of our full self, our whole self is able to show up in the world. And that's what was so alarming at the time for me to realize, is how much of myself had been contracted, had been shut away in this belief, in all these beliefs that didn't even come from me. Like they weren't even mine. They were things that other people thought about what my sex should look like. They thought my sex, not me, you know, and I was like, I didn't even have an opportunity to make a choice about how I wanted to express my self-sexuality because other people told me from the time I was little what it should look like. So when I started peeling that away, I felt so empowered. I felt so whole. I felt so capable of doing, showing up in the world, of realizing my dreams, of again, the word that wants to come through is reclaiming. It was a reclamation process. And so I see this for, you know, that I was coming from like mainstream views about sexuality. So I see this for all of us. If we haven't had sexual training, we're sexually wounded and sexually muted, I would say. So it's vital, in my opinion, for all of us as individuals to start exploring and awakening this aspect of ourselves that is so inherent and so natural within us.
Totally. And I like how you talk about it being muted. I know there's the statistic that shows 70% of women have difficulty achieving an orgasm, and at least 43% of women report having some sort of sexual dysfunction. And I like how you bring it up. It's like, if you don't fit into that, there still can be this muting that's happening. There's still more. There's more that you can learn. And that's really, really powerful. And I think it's also good to just share that statistic with our viewers, just to know, because I know when I first started like learning about this, I was like, what? Like, I can't believe that is the statistic. Like, I thought I've been here in my little corner, like, is something wrong with me?
Exactly. And that's the tragedy. That's what I hear from so many women and men. The relief of like, oh my God, I'm not broken. I'm not the only one. Well, no. I mean, if we receive no education about how to function sexually or our own basic sexual anatomy, how would we expect anything but dysfunction? You know, if you're not ever taught how to drive your car, you're going to crash it. Right? So yeah, the statistics are really high, and they're a reflection of the lack of actual, you know, healthy, I keep using that word healthy, but it has so much to do with our mental, spiritual, and physical health. Healthy, accurate is the word I'm looking for, accurate sex education. And again, you know, if we look at the culture in the United States, it's like there's wars. There's literally battles being waged over kids having sex education in school. Like, and there's so much we learn our sexual behavior from our parents. So if we look at our parents, how sexually expressed were they? Not very. They're sexually traumatized too, and their parents are sexually traumatized. So it's this generational sexual trauma that's passed forward. How do you expect to learn healthy sexual behavior if there's no one around you demonstrating that, modeling that?
Totally. And do you have like a few little like what do you think are some of the key things to like stepping into just owning your orgasm, owning your pleasures? Like, are there like something that would come to mind is, you know, like connection,
Mm.
whether that's with yourself or a partner. And I guess also this question's kind of going in a different direction, but also, do you think it's important to have a partner to dive into this world? Um, you know, like a romantic partner that you're already in a relationship with, or can people kind of dive into this on their own, or, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for asking it. So there is a misconception that you need a partner to practice Tantra, and that's completely not true. Your primary sexual relationship is the one you have with yourself. So it all begins with you. So one of the things that I specialize in, like when I teach people, I work with women, men, and couples. We're, you know, individuals and couples. And so when I'm working with individuals, what we focus on first is your relationship to your sexuality. Like, what feels good to you? How, can you touch yourself without feeling shame? If you feel shame, let's look at that. Where does that shame come from? And then I give techniques, specific healing techniques to help release that shame from the body and from the mind and the spirit as well, right? So that's part of what I teach, or specific techniques to, so we say connection, but how do we connect? So we teach techniques. Tantra is all about techniques. It's yoga, right? So it's less about the theory and more about the practice. So if we want to connect, great. How do we do that? What are the specific things that we're going to do? So a variety of practices, methods, techniques to help facilitate connection with self and then connection with other, right? So all connection begins here. It begins in our own hearts, and then it translates to others or outwards. So, you know, Tantra, from my perspective, it does not matter if you're in a relationship or not in a relationship. Often, when we're not in a relationship, that's the best time to start. Because as we go through our own healing and awakening process, the people that we're going to call in to be in relationship with are dramatically different. I went through a deep period of transformation and healing and manifested like the man of my dreams, which is why my last name is now Erickson, because I literally manifested my life partner through my tantric masturbation practice.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
You know, there's tons of women, you know, it's like, oh, I need that dream guy to come in and give me that orgasm that I've been dreaming of.
Nope.
And yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's irresponsible. So that's, again, that's part of what I speak about in the cultural conditioning. We as women are taught to be passive sexually and wait for Prince Charming to ride up on his horse and know exactly how to touch our body in the exact perfect way. And we're just going to lay there and moan, and we're not going to give him any direction or any encouragement, or we're just going to, whether we like it or not, we'll fuck through it. You know, we'll just put on a show if we have to, which is why 70% of women are not having orgasms, because they're not freaking communicating about what works for them. And the guys know this. They know that they're supposed to know everything. So they're on the internet scouring, like looking for tools, like, oh my God, looking for a roadmap to pleasure. So the best roadmap to your orgasm is you. You're the best guide to your orgasm. But we don't speak up and we don't share that information because of our own sexual guilt and shame. That's why I say the healing begins here. Through my own practice of learning to give myself a yoni massage, a vulva massage, and tantric masturbation, like learning how to awaken over 11 different orgasms for myself. Through that process of myself, when I showed up in the bedroom with a guy, I was shameless. I could say I was like, okay, that feels really good, but could you add a little bit more lube? Or, oh, a little bit to the left, please. So there was no reason to hold back because I had no shame. And I would have partners share that with me. They'd be like, oh my God, I've never been with a woman who was as comfortable in her body ever. And oh my God, I love making love with you because you tell me exactly what you want. You know? And it's not like I would show up like with a card, like, okay, this is what I want. It was just like in the process, I could say, oh yeah, that feels good. Or can we try something different? Or can you put your finger here instead? Right? So I could just give the feedback in that moment that they needed to hear, because the guys, you know, in heterosexual relationships, they want to do a good job. They have a lot of ego invested in doing a good job, you know, and I love that. I love that about guys, right? So if we give them feedback, I don't even think of it as instruction. I'm giving you feedback, right? It's a dance. It's, you know, you do and I give you feedback, and you do this and I give you feedback. It's a very natural, organic thing. If I give you feedback about what's working, then you're going to do more of that. I'm going to have great orgasms and you're going to feel awesome.
I could see how that could also go into the world of being intimidating too. So how would a woman deal with that if she's like is owning it? Do you know what I mean? Like, how
Yeah.
it could intimidate guys because they're so used to women just kind of passively receiving whether it's the right thing or not for them.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's okay to be intimidated or intimidating. And I say for men, it's okay to be intimidated, but if you're willing to take a chance, it's going to be the ride of your life. And what I always say is, I always share my whole motivation, my whole approach to sexuality is loving kindness and compassion. Like, we are two human beings that are putting ourselves in this really vulnerable, really precious place. Like, let's be kind to each other. Nobody's perfect, you know, like it doesn't, I'm not expecting the perfect anything. And what I'm wanting is for us to connect with each other and be in this and experience pleasure together. That's our motivation, is let's connect and experience pleasure. I don't go into a sexual experience planning to have orgasms. I teach that orgasm isn't the goal. Pleasure and connection are the goal, or connecting through pleasure is the goal. So if that's our motivation, to just come together and have an adventure, explore pleasure, and find out what happens, it really takes the weight off. So it's not this intimidating, oh, I better make her come, or, you know, I better perform. That's toxic. And that's the way conventional sexuality is anyway. That's the thing. That's why a guy would feel intimidated, is because he thinks that there's this expectation for him to perform. And he feels that every time he goes into a sexual experience. So the more a woman knows about her sexuality, it would be intimidating because he doesn't know if he could measure up to that performance. But again, if we shift our view around sexuality to be an adventure, an a mutual exploration, we're just here to explore and play. Like, let's learn together. I learned stuff about myself. I've been doing this for 10 years. I still learn. Every time I make love, I still learn something new about my body or my partner's body.
Yeah, I love that. I love the willingness. I think that, yeah, really important. And again, you can just bring it back to yourself in the beginning without even getting a partner involved. But how willing are you to give yourself this pleasure and not rush to the finish line?
Exactly. That's, again, when we take orgasm as the goal out of the picture. Because then what, you know, I mean, like, sexual, it's the most amazing kind of pleasure we can have. It's insane. And the longer we are in this zone of sexual pleasure, our body and our brain are bathed in like these amazing chemicals that are produced in the body. Like, literally, the longer your sexual arousal process, the more healthy it is for you, the more beneficial it is for you on every single level, right? So this idea that we've got to hurry up and have an orgasm, why? That means it's the end. It's like walking into a movie theater and like fast forwarding to the end. Okay, we're done, bye. Like, why would you do that? Let's explore. There's a whole like drama about to unfold. I want to be present for that. And then, you know, orgasm, and there's not just one orgasm. Like, I made love with my partner last night. He had 5 orgasms. I had 3. You know, I mean, it's like orgasm isn't the end. That's just like, it's just a little plateau that you reach, and then you go even higher. It's amazing.
And so with this work, would you say this is something that anyone at any age could dive into?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because when we just got on the call, I literally just finished a session like about an hour and a half ago with a couple who were in their 70s and hadn't had sex in 10 years. And through, we spent a couple hours yesterday and then like an hour today. And then I was teaching them yoni massage, and then they kicked me out of the room. And she had her first orgasm in 10 years. I mean, it was just, I mean, it's so like, and I have experiences like that all the time. And every time it happens, it's just like, my heart is just like, I can't even describe what goes on in my heart when that happens. But it's such a privilege and an honor to support people through this process of, you know, I mean, like, sexual, it's the most amazing kind of pleasure we can have. It's insane. And the longer we are in this zone of sexual pleasure, our body and our brain are bathed in like these amazing chemicals that are produced in the body. Like, literally, the longer your sexual arousal process, the more healthy it is for you, the more beneficial it is for you on every single level, right? So this idea that we've got to hurry up and have an orgasm, again, of reclaiming like 10 years, no orgasm, no sexual connection. And I just like honor the courage and the commitment of this couple, to be willing at this point in their life to like, hey, they were not willing to give up and throw in the towel. They were like, no, this is important, and we want to know how to do this in a way that is going to be sustainable and that actually works for us. So they like came to get educated, and they got results, and like their lives will never, the next 20 years of their lives are not going to be the same. No. So yeah, anybody, I mean, I say I'll work with anybody over the age of 18, legal consenting age. And I really think how amazing would it be to learn this as part of sex education? It doesn't have to be everything, right? But just like, how do you communicate about your pleasure? Like basic fundamental things, which I believe would help reduce rates of teen pregnancy, reduce STDs, reduce all these terrible things that happen when we live in a culture of sexual secrecy.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, I wanted to see if you have like a little tool or a sample exercise that the viewers that are home could do, whether it's right now or if it's something they take later with them when they're in bed.
Yeah, I do. I have a really fun meditation practice. So I usually start all of my teaching with meditation, because the purpose of meditation is to get present in your body. If you're not present in your body, you can't have great orgasms, period. Like if you're worried about stuff or stressed about stuff, your body like cannot come, or it's going to be minimal. So I teach meditation as a foundation for self-connection. Okay. So the meditation that I'm going to teach you today also has the potential to activate the sexual system, the sexual energy of the body. So that it's kind of like has this dual purpose of connecting you with self and activating your sexuality. Okay, so it's about, I don't know how long it is, like 6-10 minutes maybe, but let's do it together. Sound good? Okay, all right. So what I'm going to invite you to do is sit with the spine straight and have your head with your chin tilted slightly downward. This aligns your chakras along the central channel. Tongue on the roof of your mouth. This connects your microcosmic orbit, your governing vessel with your conception vessel in Taoism. And in the lineage of Tantra that I practice, we meditate with the eyes open. And this is because, as I said, the word Tantra means to weave light and sound with form. So we need the eyes open to bring in light to feed and nourish the light body or the energy body. But also meditating with your eyes open helps integrate your internal experience with your external reality. When we meditate with the eyes closed, we're like, okay, this is meditation zone. And when we open the eyes, it's like, oh, there's the rest of the world, right? So meditating with a soft gaze makes it so that no matter what you're doing, you can always function in the state of meditation. And that's the goal, to be functioning in a meditative state. Okay? And then your hands in a comfortable position. So you can do soft gaze or whatever works for you. So to begin with, we're just going to focus on our breath, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And as you inhale, I'm going to invite you to breathe into your belly. So if you're breathing properly, you should feel your belly expand with your inhalation, and you should feel it relax with your exhalation. So very mindfully, without force, without contrivance, but just by bringing your awareness into your belly, breathing into that area. And as you exhale, just allowing it to relax. Good. And breathing in this way, this is going to help us focus. This is actually preparing the mind to meditate. So breathing mindfully in this way, I'm going to invite you to count 10 full breaths, starting now with the exhalation. Good. And after the 10th breath, continuing to focus on your breathing, I'm going to invite you to visualize, and I like to say see, sense, or feel, because not everybody can visualize, but some people can feel or sense a tiny point of red light in the center of your chest, like a tiny pinprick of red light. And then see this point of red light grow to a ball, a sphere, about the size of a large grape. So it's a three-dimensional sphere of light in the center of your chest. If you can't see it, feel it, sense it. And it's red, brilliant, radiant, hot, like fire. So red light represents the element of fire, and the fire element governs your sexual reproductive system. So by focusing on red light, and we're going to bring it down to the genitals in a minute, it helps to activate and enrich the fire element energy in your entire sexual system. So moving that red light down the center of your body and allowing it to come to rest in your pelvis. So you can kind of feel the heat from this red ball in your genital area. I'm going to invite you to breathe into this red sphere of light. Now we're going to turn the red ball into a pyramid. The pyramid is the symbol, again, for the element of fire. So we're really inviting our awareness to activate and enrich fire element in our bodies. So seeing the sphere become a tiny red pyramid, like an Egyptian pyramid, the point is upward. And in this red pyramid of light, we're going to see the letters R-A-M, Ram. This is the sound that activates fire element energy in your body and in your environment. So we're just going to chant Ram 3 times out loud together, focusing on that red pyramid. Ram, Ram, Ram. Now we're going to charge that red pyramid up. So as we chant, we're going to see rays of red light radiate out from this red pyramid, filling all the channels of our body and then radiating out into our environment. We're going to chant Ram quickly, as many times as we can in one breath. So inhaling. Rum 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 rum. Good. And seeing that red light radiating out from your pelvis, again filling your body and your environment. Just taking a few moments to be present with that radiance. And then bringing those rays back to the red pyramid, so it's just the pyramid. We're going to do a pelvic floor breathing practice. And this is a physical yoga practice that will help activate your sexual system. So we're going to inhale through the nose. And at the top of the inhalation, we're going to contract and release the pelvic floor in I like to think of it as like a heartbeat. It's like a pulsing heartbeat, as many times as we can while holding the breath and focusing on the red pyramid. Okay, so here we go. We're going to inhale, focusing on the red pyramid, hold the breath and contract. And exhaling when you're ready. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Again, seeing that red pyramid, inhaling, hold and contract. And exhale. You should exhale through your nose. I mistakenly exhaled through my mouth the first time. Again, inhaling through the nose, holding, seeing the red pyramid and contract. And exhaling. And again, just taking a few moments, feel into your pelvic floor now. Feel into your yoni or your lingam if you have a lingam. Well, you should feel something. All that contracting is and all that pulsing helps blood flow and circulation. So I definitely feel a little tingly down there. So after that, you're going to turn the pyramid back into a ball or a sphere of light. And we're going to integrate all of that yummy sexual energy that we just stimulated. We're going to integrate that back into the heart. So seeing that red sphere move up the center of your body and coming to rest at your heart center. And again, taking a few moments to breathe into that, really feel that union between your heart and your genitals. And then we're going to shrink that red ball of light back down to a tiny pinprick and disappear that into infinite space. And then taking a few moments to just rest in emptiness, allowing the meditation to integrate. And whenever you're ready, putting your attention back on your breath, connecting breath to body and bringing your awareness back to the screen. How did that feel?
Oh, that was amazing. Really enjoy connecting it back with the heart. I think that's a really powerful and important piece.
Absolutely. Yes, the heart and the genitals are meant to function as one organism, one unit.
Yeah. Feels whole and complete.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh. Well, all the viewers out there, you're so lucky to receive that little snippet of a tool that you can use. So definitely take it with you and practice it. And would you have, Davy, would you say, is there a good amount of, like, how often should you do that?
Every morning. You will get good results. I usually recommend a minimum of 4 to 5 times a week at a minimum.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here at the Global Goddess Fest. It was amazing getting to hear all of the knowledge that you've collected over the years and transferring it out and getting this information out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. And everyone that's watching, Devi is going to be giving us all a free gift. So she has a female orgasm intensive module 1. And if you want to share a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. So this is pretty amazing. So we launched a 6-module Tantra training program for women. And this is the most in-depth Tantra training program that you can get online particularly for women. So it's a tremendous amount of content. And your free gift, and it's available for 14 days, is all of Module 1. And in Module 1, you get to learn like what Tantra is, where it came from, And then also you're going to learn about the 4 pillars of authentic Tantra, which is the modality that was birthed through me. And then you're also going to get a tantric movement practice, a free tantric movement practice. So that will be really powerful to help integrate this meditation practice into a movement practice. So it's just rich in content. We talk about how to heal sexual trauma in module 1, what sexual trauma is, how to heal it, how important it is to use movement and breath and awareness to release that from the body. And then the result, what's on the other side of trauma, which is transformation, right? Healing, empowerment. So it's just so content rich. I've had people like who took module 1 and they're like, that's all I need. Like that's the class, right? That's and I think module 1 it's like at least an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So enjoy it. You've got 14 days to savor it and revere in it and love it. And then if you want to stay connected, you'll have the option to sign up for our wait list. We're going to be launching the full program in the spring. And I do encourage you to sign up for our free. We have like several free ebooks. We've got a free ebook for couples called 3 Tantric Secrets for Extraordinary Sex. We've got weekly YouTube videos and blogs. And then we have a book about the Tibetan 5-element healing practices all on our website. So I encourage you to stay connected.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I know I'm definitely going to go and get that right now.
Yay,
good. Well, thank you so much, Devi, for joining us. And everyone, stay tuned for the next guest, and we'll see you soon.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy.